Hello, everyone. Thank you again for spending your afternoon or perhaps your lunch hour with us. We're really thrilled to have you here and talk more about our program, Masters of Science in Addiction Policy and Practice. Go into a little bit of who we are, what we do, and what we're excited about with this program. So first of all, we'll introduce ourselves and our different roles within the program. We have a special guest alumni with us today, which we're really excited to share with you. We're going to go into the program overview, look into career opportunities and alumni outcomes, an admissions overview that looks into what to expect when applying to the program and financing your degree, and finally leaving plenty of time for your questions at the end. All right, so first off, my name is Jennifer Jansen or Jenny Jansen. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the program coordinator for the Addiction Policy and Practice program. What that means is I support prospective and current students from application to graduation. If you have questions from anything from recruitment and admissions to academic planning and advising, I'm a great contact for that, and I'll have my contact information at the end if you want to get in touch with any questions, any concerns you had about anything you saw today. With that, I will pass it off to our program director, Professor Regina LaBelle. And we will also introduce today Dr. Adam Myers, our associate director, and our alumni, Nikki Carter. So let's start with Professor Regina LaBelle. Dr. Myers, did we lose Regina?
Looks
You're on
like
mute.
we might have lost her.
Oh no. Well, why don't we start with Dr. Myers, and I'll reach out to her.
Dr. Myers, you're still on mute.
Okay, so with a couple bugs out of the way, I'm Dr. Adam Myers, a longtime professor at Georgetown University, first at the Medical Center and more recently working for this program and the Health and the Public Interest program. And my role in this program is to help in various aspects. Regina LaBelle is the director. I work with her on the admissions process. I also advise students, particularly those who are interested in sciences or perhaps medicine in the long run. In my role at the medical center, I taught medical school and grad school and was involved in running various programs over there. So it's great to, in my semi-retirement, be doing this work for a couple of programs that I think to be socially important and very timely in our society. So with that, I'm assuming Regina is not on, is that right?
Yeah, unfortunately, she had an internet
Okay.
outage, so she's trying to get back in right now. But for now, we can introduce Nikki Carter, who's here with us today.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Nikki Carter. My pronouns are she, they. And I was in the last cohort at Georgetown, and I currently work at American Medical Association, and I'm an adjunct professor teaching harm reduction and public health.
All right, lovely. Dr. Myers, would you like to introduce some of the faculty while we wait for Professor LaBelle?
Sure, I can't do quite a thorough job as Dr. LaBelle, Professor LaBelle might do, but please go ahead and start up with those slides. So as I mentioned, Professor LaBelle is the director. I'm the associate director. We have kind of an all-star cast really of people in the addiction world, addiction policy world. Amanda Lattimore is a director of the Center for Addiction Research and Effective Solutions. She's teaches our course in social epidemiology and addiction. Brandon Del Pozo PhD, is Assistant Professor of Medicine and Public Health at Brown University, and as is the case with Amanda Lattimore, an adjunct professor at Georgetown. And he teaches a course in comparative approaches to addiction policy. The third person here is Wilson Compton, MD. He's a deputy director of the National Institute on Drugs of Abuse at NIH. He teaches Foundations of Addiction 1 and 2 in the fall and in the spring semesters. And as you can see from this, all of our teaching faculty are adjuncts, and they're not adjuncts in the sense of we couldn't find somebody in-house to do this. We're really reaching out and getting the best and the brightest people in the field of addiction policy, which is a relatively new field, and these folks are really at the center of the development of those policies in the United States. Is there another faculty slide? Okay,
Yes.
great. Emily Einstein teaches neuroscience, fundamentals of neurobiology in our program, basically so that students become familiar with the neurological basis of substance use. She's from also the National Institute of Drugs of Abuse at NIH. Is the Chief of Science Policy there. Christopher Jones. Dr. Jones is the director of the Center for Substance Abuse and Prevention at SAMHSA, and he teaches a course in data statistics of drug policy. Talid El-Sabawi, JD, PhD, is a research scholar, addiction and public policy at the O'Neill Institute for National and Global Health Law, and she teaches U.S. addiction policy. Next, please. So a couple more faculty. Shelley Wiseman is very important to our program. She's a JD. She's a project director of the Addiction and Public Policy Institute at the O'Neill Institute at Georgetown, and she teaches a course in mental health and addiction law and policy. Elizabeth Connolly, MPA, is the senior principal winning strategies in Washington, D.C., and she teaches a course in healthcare financing.
All righty. Thank you, Dr. Myers, and apologies again. Professor LaBelle should be able to get back on with us in a minute here. We have this slide about Georgetown in general. This is kind of something we'll go into over the course of the presentation, but what you mainly need to know about this is we're connected to the Georgetown network. We're on the main Hilltop campus. And what that means is you have an opportunity to engage with a lot of students, faculty, and alumni from a range of different backgrounds and experiences. We get most of our faculty out of house. We have a lot of adjunct professors because we want people who also kind of have real working experience in the field to best advise you, but we also have a lot of opportunities to interact with other departments. For example, we have an in-person open house on Friday where we're teaming up with a bunch of the other interdisciplinary programs. And Dr. Myers has firsthand experience with one of our sister programs, Health in the Public Interest, and we'll sometimes have some crossover with them. So there's a lot of opportunity to work in different places across campus, to work with or interact with people who are in different majors across different campuses, or even take an elective on a different campus. So there's a lot of that benefit there when you are working at Georgetown and studying at Georgetown. And as we kind of mentioned, there's a lot of blend of study and real world experience, especially through our professors who have real world experience. And finally, our Jesuit values are really core to what we believe here. The one you'll hear a lot is Cura Personalis, or care of the whole person, and that really drives our program mission, in that we're interested not just in you as students and the community as learners, but also as people who have interests and needs, and that's informs a lot of our kind of compassionate and also science-based approach to addiction policy. Looks like Professor LaBelle may be on with us now. Is that correct?
I am.
Right.
My apologies. It's never happened to me. My internet went out. So unless I can get it back, I'll be joining you by phone.
Yeah. Would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. This is Regina LaBelle. I am a professor in the addiction policy program. I'm also with the O'Neill Institute at Georgetown Law, where I do research on various aspects of addiction policy. And we started this program. We have our fourth cohort, and look forward to answering any questions you might have and talking to you a little bit about the program.
All right, wonderful. All right, so now we're talking about why we study addiction policy.
Great. So, we started this program, as I mentioned, I had served in the Obama administration, the Office of National Drug Control Policy for 8 years, and also worked at the City of Seattle for a while as well, on various aspects of social conditions leading to addiction, or how addiction affected a city, and untreated addiction in particular. So the program really started because I felt there was a real need for us to address addiction in a holistic way, and that too often our addiction policies were driven not by science or evidence or compassion, but really by stigma, as well as it may have been one person's approach that may have worked for them, but isn't necessarily the most comprehensive way to approach substance use disorder and how it affects communities and families. So the purpose of this program, and I think we've been successful, and you're going to meet with Nikki in a bit, was really to try to build a cadre of addiction policy professionals who were informed with rigorous science and evidence, as well as having had a comprehensive view. We really try to do that by making sure you're exposed to as many people as possible who work in this space, so that folks can go out into the field and build an approach to addiction policy that treats people with respect and dignity, and actually gives them the services that they may need to live full lives.
All right, wonderful. Let's go into our program overview and kind of what makes our major unique. Looking over our program in general, our goal is to prepare future addiction policy leaders who want to build a response to addiction, as Professor LaBelle mentioned, based on not only science and evidence, but also that grounding in compassion. This program has full-time and part-time options. Typically, it'll take 2 to 3 years to complete part-time and 1 year full-time. It's designed to be a 1-year full-time course that I believe goes to around from the summer of 1 year, the summer of the end. It's kind of little bookends there. Something unique about our degree, as we mentioned, is you'll probably see as you're researching, is there's not a lot of other master's programs out there in the country that really cover what we do. There's a lot of addiction studies out there now, which is great to see that growing, but a lot of the reason why this degree was developed, because addiction policy is a really strong way that we can make these changes at the government level and also at the local levels. And this is something that Professor LaBelle wasn't seeing a lot of academic training for. Which has led to a good number of our students actually being people who are already in the field coming back to get that kind of academic piece. We do not have our current confirmed tuition rate for the academic year of 2025, but we are closing in on it this winter. Our one from last year was $50,400. It's about $1,700 per credit, and we have 30 credits that you're going to complete for your course. Keep in mind that this will probably be subject to the 4% tuition increase that happens across the university each year. So that's probably the number you'd be looking at next year, that with the 4% increase. And as I mentioned, for those credits, there are 27 core course credits. We'll get into a bit of the specific classes and the way that schedule will look in a bit, but that also includes 3 elective credits, which translates to about 1 elective. That you can take in different schools across the university and different campuses. which is pretty great. We have a lot of people who are trying to enroll in ones at McCourt, the public policy school right now. We have people doing other interdisciplinary programs, electives. Within the graduate school, there's a lot of options there. And finally, we have a capstone project. Professor LaBelle, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So as Jenny said, this is a year-long program, and at the end of it, you will go take a deep dive into an issue that is of personal significance, a policy issue. So what the students do, it's a tutored, a mentored capstone. I teach the capstone program, and you also have a mentor who can kind of help guide you through the development of both the topic as well as the research, and thinking through how you want to approach it. So it's a paper, but also accompanying the paper is another policy piece. So what we've seen in many cases is that people may know what the science is, but may not know how to translate that science into policy. Students have chosen a number of different topics. One student last year did her capstone on prevention, and she also wrote and developed a podcast to accompany her paper. So it's the paper, but also kind of a product to accompany it. We had another student who drafted their policy project was an op-ed on the use and acceptance of individuals with medications in long-term care facilities. That publication was published, and it accompanied her paper, and she's also been able to use that in her professional capacity. Nikki, do you want to say what your capstone was and what your accompanying product was, policy product?
Absolutely. So as a little background, I had worked a little bit on state policy before I entered into Georgetown. And so as kind of a thought exercise, I did mine on federal drug decriminalization. And so how policy-wise that would kind of work out, and the science behind that. And it was kind of right after Oregon had passed their drug decriminalization, which was, of course, now yanked back. But yeah, I think it was a really great project. And I believe my accompaniment was a policy brief, if I'm not mistaken. Which Yeah, I actually think it's really helpful to do that for in the real world, because oftentimes in school we're kind of used to writing 10 15-page papers, taking a real deep dive into the issue, really honing in on the evidence, and exactly how the policy breakout would go. But I quickly realized, working at the AMA, that people really like quick snippets. So those 1 to 2 page policy briefs really do kind of prepare you for what people are really looking for kind of in the workforce.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we do, there is academic rigor to the class, but we do try to make it, the program, but we do try to make it as practical as possible. So policymakers are not, as Nikki just said, policymakers don't have time to read a 20-page paper or 15-page paper. They want the bold points up front, and they also want to make sure that they have options. And so those are the types of things that we educate people about in the program.
All right, next up is our standard full-time schedule.
Great. So as you can see on from the slide, the courses begin remotely in July, and so it's a 6-week program, and at that point you're remote. You take the basics, so data analysis and statistics, U.S. addiction policy, healthcare financing. Apologies, it is that program starts in the beginning of late July, early August. Then the courses start in person in the fall. So you have Fundamentals of Neurobiology, Foundations of Addiction 1. The Foundations of Addiction is a full year class, so 1.5 credits each semester. And you learn about the continuum of care and the science behind that. And then you have the integrative seminar in the fall, where our students are in that now. What we do in that, it's a once a week 3-credit class. I do have guest speakers who talk about various aspects of addiction policy. Last week, for example, we had someone speak about gambling disorder and policy approaches to addressing the increasing availability of gambling and gaming in the U.S. And then social epidemiology and addiction is in the fall. In the spring, we have addiction and mental health law and policy, Foundations of Addiction 2, the second half of integrative seminar, and then you get to take a policy elective. So an elective from a variety of courses that are available throughout the university. And again, students are in the process of picking that elective right now. And then you finish up in the second summer. This is in person with the second half of the data analysis and statistics. You have a class in comparative addiction policy, and then finally the mentored capstone. And then you're finished. And so again, it's year to year, 1-year program. We did that to make sure that students that you get the education you need, but you're not undertaking, a huge investment that, may keep you from pursuing a career in addiction policy going forward.
All right, and here is a sample of a part-time schedule and what that may look like.
So the part-time schedule, as Jenny said, typically we've had one student complete it in a 2-year period. We have another student in the program right now. They will finish up in a 2-year period. And then we have a couple students who just started this fall who'll finish up in 2 years. So for the most part, it's been achievable that people can finish it up in 2 years. We have this suggested approach so that students can, some of the courses build upon one another. So it's important you get kind of the fundamentals first and that you finish it with the capstone. As Jenny said, it's possible to do it over a 3-year, but we would have to work with the student to figure out, what classes to take when.
Yeah, you may see it says 3 years here, but that's mainly just to accommodate the third summer there. All right. And now let's talk a little bit about our alumni and their career paths.
Great. So, I think the field of addiction policy is one that is fairly small, and our goal is to make it obviously much bigger. And I think that we've been, successful at doing that in kind of filling the roles, addiction policy roles, at both the federal, state, and local government. We have folks working, one individual is working in the DC Department of Behavioral Health. She works on harm reduction programs. Another student works as a recovery coach in a jail. Another student works for the state of Maryland. You've already met Nikki. She'll talk about her career. We have 2 students who work in the federal government at the Office of National Drug Control Policy. One is in New York State, another is in Oregon, working for the state government on prevention policies. So I think, there's no dearth of jobs in this field. I think that many people who go into the field may have a public health degree. Public health degrees are excellent, but they won't give you kind of the deep dive look at addiction policy that this program will. So we're really pleased with where our students have ended up. Some are also consultants in the private sector. Maybe Nikki, you could talk a little bit about, about your career, a little bit more about what you do, and anything else you want to add.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Nikki Carter, and I work as a substance use policy analyst for the American Medical Association. And kind of what that means is that basically twice a year, the American Medical Association hosts all the state medical societies and specialty societies in medicine, and they decide on policy that they want to enact for the upcoming years. And so when that policy focuses on substance use, I'm often the person to take a deep dive into kind of what that policy means, what's the evidence behind it, what are the implications, who are the kind of important organizations or stakeholders that might be involved, and is it basically a good position for the AMA to take? And so in addition to that, I also do things like help with continuing education for physicians, particularly in substance use. So we actually just released a recent podcast series on cannabis use, and so looking into different kind of specialty topics around that. So cannabis use among pregnant people, cannabis use in adolescents. So yeah, it's kind of a an all-encompassing job that this program really does prepare you for in terms of thinking about um, addiction and substance use in all its facets, right? The biological, the psychological, and the social. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I do at the AMA. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Nikki. And also, as you'll see here, and as Professor LaBelle mentioned earlier, all students who fill out our form who express interest are matched with a personal career mentor, which is a really exciting opportunity that we offer outside of the typical kind of graduate career center career coaches that anyone across the university can have. These ones are a little bit more specialized in addiction policy and kind of your personal career goals. All right, so here are some lovely pictures of our students getting involved.
Yeah, if I could just, so, the Washington, D.C. has one of the highest rates of overdose deaths in the country, as well as, untreated addiction generally. And so Washington, D.C. is an important part of our community. Georgetown is not separate from Washington, D.C. We're part of it. And so we do seek out opportunities for our students to get involved at the community level, but also Washington, D.C. is the nation's capital. And each year our students are really pleased to go and privileged to attend events at the U.S. Capitol, where they've attended briefings, but also been part of naloxone trainings for members of Congress. We also have had several of our students who have attended recovery walk events, as well as recovery events and prevention events at the White House. September is Recovery Month. There's always a lot of activity that our students, right when they enter, when they start in-person classes, there's a lot that can be done, and it's a great opportunity. I think it really fills out and rounds out the education the students are receiving, and is a really unique aspect of it. And Nikki, again, I don't know if you have anything else to add about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was kind of shocked at all the kind of opportunities to engage around DC. And I think especially with the great connections that Professor Labelle has, there's certainly no shortage of great internships, great events to go to kind of meet people that are in the same field and really kind of network. Because as Regina was saying, this field is quite small, and we do all kind of know each other. So it's very helpful to meet people in other organizations or places that you may be interested in working in. Kind of using that to move along.
Great, thanks. We also our students started Hoyas for Recovery a couple of years ago, and that each year kind of hands it off to the next student group. It's an informal opportunity for students to get together, individuals who are in recovery or are interested in recovery, to learn from one another, to form community. We really take this on seriously. About the opposite of addiction is community and connection, and that's what Hoyas for Recovery, as well as being involved in our community, really means. Jenny, do you want to go to the next slide?
Jenny, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Anyways, we are now on the slide with Benjamin Frayfield, one of our alumni, just kind of spotlighting his own kind of experience with the program. He is currently in Maryland's Office for Overdose Response.
Yeah, and this picture is, he was training the governor of Maryland and the lieutenant governor on how to use naloxone at their Overdose Awareness Day event last year.
We also mentioned that we had some students in consulting. One of them is Nikki Soda, who started her own consulting company after being in the program, and she was actually in the field before she came to the program.
And she was our first part-time student to finish up in 2 years.
Yes. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about admissions and what to expect when applying to the program. Here is a handy little checklist of everything you can expect to submit for your application, so feel free to screenshot or take a picture if that's helpful for you. The first thing you'll need, this is an online portal, so you just need to complete that application form. Next up is the application fee. I'll be talking about our deadlines later, but if you apply by our priority deadline of January 15th, that fee is waived, which is always good to know. Next up, we require a statement of purpose, which is up to 500 words, talking about your academic journey, what brought you to apply to the program, what you hope to get out of it, and anything else you want us to know. Because we're a very mission-driven cohort, even though it's listed as optional, we also strongly urge you to fill out the optional personal background statement, which is just another up to 500 words that gives you an opportunity to expand on your personal background, your experiences, and how they contribute to your interest in this field. This is a great place to kind of demonstrate that you are ready and willing to be an active contributor in our community. And we always welcome any opportunity to get to know our applicants more through their application. So it's just a really great place to kind of express more of your interest in the program and how you're connected to the mission. Next up is your resume or your curriculum vitae and 2 letters of recommendation. If you are early in your education or completing a degree, we'd love to have 1 recommendation from an academic you've worked with, like a professor. But we do have students and applicants who are long out of school or mid-career, so we'll accept 1 or both letters from a trusted professional, such as someone you've worked with. And also the good thing to know by these deadlines is we need the names and emails of the recommenders. You have a couple weeks after that deadline to make sure they actually submit the letter. So you don't need to wait until they fully have the letter prepared to submit your application. This is also handled through the online portal like everything else. So some handy things to know there are, 1, your recommenders will get email instructions on how to upload their letter. 2, you can check the progress and see if it's been uploaded yet through the portal. And 3, you can send reminders to the recommenders through the portal. So that's always a good feature to have too. As soon as it's available, we'll need a official transcript with your undergraduate degree on it for those of you who are currently completing that. But we will accept an unofficial transcript by both the priority deadline and the final deadline. Just know we will eventually need that and need proof that you've completed a bachelor's degree for you to be eligible for admission and to be fully matriculated into the school. Finally, for those of you who are not native English speakers or attended a school where English was not the primary language of instruction, we require a demonstration of English language proficiency test. You'll see on the right there the minimum scores we require, but this is waived if you are, of course, a native speaker or if you attended a school where English was the primary language of instruction, because then we're assuming you're able to sufficiently complete coursework in English. You'll also see on the right there that we do not require a GRE test. So what does it take to be considered eligible for admission to the program? Firstly, as I mentioned, you need to hold a bachelor's degree or equivalent from an accredited institution. In the US, this is typically a 4-year undergraduate degree. You may need a WES evaluation if you're coming from out of the country to make sure that your undergraduate degree maps to that. Next up, as we mentioned, we are really passionate about what we do, and we are ready to train people who are ready to go into the workforce and make amazing change. So any way you can demonstrate interest in addiction policy or related fields, such as public policy, social science, healthcare, community service, are all strongly preferred. And those are always good things to kind of share through your application materials, as well as just meeting with us and things like that. Because this program deals with people who have a lot of lived experience with substance use disorders, with the incarceral system, and everything that comes along with recovery, we also do want to emphasize that we give consideration to individuals with lived experience. We want to hear your experiences, what makes you a great and passionate advocate for the program, maybe if you did an interesting internship or volunteer work or a job, anything that demonstrates interest, we'd love to hear more about it and we'd love to chat with you about it. Finally, the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences requires a minimum GPA of 3.0 on a 4.0 scale. With all this in mind, however, I do want to draw your attention to that box in the bottom right there because we conduct a holistic review. We are interested in the whole person that you are, and we acknowledge, especially around issues like substance use disorders, that not everyone has the same academic or professional journey. So if any of this information concerns you, we really encourage you to reach out to us via our program email, which I'll put up later, which is addictionpolicy@georgetown.edu. You can schedule office hours with me. You can schedule meetings with the program director through me. But we really want to have something that's something we hold space for. And we have had students who are in long-term recovery in the program and as alumni. All right. So those application deadlines I mentioned, the first one is coming up after the holidays. It is January 15th. This is a good one to hit for a couple reasons. The first is that your application fee is waived, which is $90 back in your pocket. Always nice. And next up, if you are an international student or even if you're domestic, it gives you a couple extra months to figure out your travel, coordinate documents like visas, and things like that. So it's just a little bit helpful to get that leg up and kind of know early how you're going to transition to life in DC. We will continue to review applications on a rolling basis until April 1st, 2025. And the application fee after January 15th is $90. For both of these, the academic year will start at the same time, July 2025, and that will be the summer virtual pre-session. Finally, let's talk a little bit about financing your degree. As we said, we don't have a confirmed tuition rate for the academic year of 2025 yet, but I would definitely check the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences website, take a look at our rate there, and anticipate a 4% tuition increase, because that's the most likely outcome there. One thing that you'll notice when you're on that website too is we offer a discounted rate from the typical graduate school rate for all students. This was an agreement made with the school based on their faith in the mission and the work of this program. So we're really excited to offer that discount to students as just kind of the automatic rate for everyone. Besides that, the majority of students finance their degrees through multiple sources, such as external scholarships and employment benefits. That's one of the reasons why we try to have our course schedule accommodate part-time students as much as possible. For people who have employer tuition benefits, we really encourage you to reach out to your employer and see if you're eligible, what kind of programs they offer, and how you can take advantage of them. We also have a number of offices on campus for students that are admitted into the program that are very helpful for finding and securing external funding. We have a graduate office for fellowships and scholarships that regularly has a newsletter with new opportunities. I can also send you some of the opportunities that are available to students in and out of the program if you want to learn more about that after the session. But another good office to check out is the Graduate Career Center, as well as the Colley Career Center. The Colley one skews a little bit more towards undergraduates, but is still free and available to students in graduate programs. Another thing to know is if you are eligible for Veterans Affairs benefits. And if you believe you are, you can contact the GU Veterans Service for more information on starting that application process. And I believe you can schedule appointments with them on their website. We also encourage our students to fill out the free application for Federal Student Aid, or the FAFSA, because it is free and grad students are eligible. This will be open for the next academic year starting on December 1st, which is coming up. When you fill this out, you could be found eligible for federal low-interest student loans, or you could be potentially awarded federal work study, which would allow you to apply to federal work study designated positions on campus, which are generally just part-time positions across the university. You can also work a part-time job on campus for up to 20 hours as a student, even if you don't have that designation. So it's always good to just fill out the FAFSA and see if you're eligible. But we also have a number of part-time options to be a research assistant, a teaching assistant, things like working at the library, all sorts of jobs across the Hilltop campus outside of our department, which can sometimes be a nice opportunity to work with other programs and see what they're doing. Finally, the Georgetown Office of Revenue and Receivables offers monthly installment payment plans for tuition through them. You can sign up for that through the typical billing portal for Georgetown. All right, so thank you again, everyone, for spending your afternoon with us. It's been really lovely to talk with you more about the program. Now we're going to open it up to your questions and see kind of what you're thinking after the presentation or what you want to learn more about. So to ask a question, feel free to go off of mute to use the raise hand function or type in the chat, and we will get right back to you.
Hi,
Hello.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, my name is Salomon Shell. I'm an anthropologist. I'm from Colombia. My country, as you know, has been very much affected by addiction, drug wars, etc. I now currently work as a human resources administrator for a company in the private sector. I manage over 200 workers, and I've been working on changing the company's policy towards drugs and consumption in general. We actually worked with there's an NGO here called Leche Le Cabeza, which works on prevention treatment, and we've tried to give our workers classes with this NGO towards addiction and prevention treatment. And first of all, I just want to say thanks for the time, the space, and I really believe I've been searching and searching, and I really believe this MS will be very helpful um, towards learning addiction policy and working here in Colombia in terms of that. I wanted to know more about like international aid or help, financial help for international students.
Thanks for your question and thanks for your work in Colombia. This is Regina. So we do not, we're a a small program without an endowment, and we do not have additional financial aid for international students at this time. It's certainly something we can work towards, but we don't have that right now. And, you know, we've had, in the 4 cohorts, we've had 1 international student, and they, you know, they found other ways to finance it, but nothing for international student aid at this time.
We do
Okay.
have offices through the school for kind of resources for international students and finding external funding. So if you're interested in that, you're welcome to email me and I can get back to you with that. Well, sometimes we don't have as many financial resources within our own internal master's program because we are only 4 cohorts, which is about 4 years. And we're starting pretty small and growing quickly, which is exciting. We do have access to the larger Georgetown University resources on kind of securing external funding. So I'm always here if people have any questions about that or good resources to check out.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. I'll surely be emailing you.
No problem. If anyone else has any other questions, feel free to go off of mute,
Hello.
raise your hand. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon. My name is Godwin, and I'm from Ghana. One of the newly admitted students into the program. I'm very grateful for all the opportunity we have to listen to this valuable information that you've given to us. Last year, fortunately for me, I applied one time. I wasn't considered, but looking at my country where addiction is now crippling the future of the youth in my country, there's the need for people to go outside Ghana, study addiction policy and practice, to come back and help in the drafting of addiction policy laws for the country. So it's really an honor to be admitted into this program, and I look forward to coming to learn. Then I'll come out to my country to help in the drafting of addiction policies. And one of the things I would want to find out is that, you know, as an international student coming to the US to study, it's sometimes, financially difficult. So I want you to explain the tuition, employer tuition, with their financial aid opportunities that you can share with us for us to be able to look for other funding, so that we can add up to whatever that we have to help us be able to pass through the academic program successfully. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I would also recommend you email me. I can send you some more kind of focused resources for how international students secure aid. Employer tuition benefits usually relate to people who are kind of working part-time and also pursuing full-time work while doing that. So usually that's a resource that if you were employed and also doing the program at the same time, you would already know or be able to research if you have access to. So that may be more if you were working your job while pursuing the program, like say, I was in the program and also working somewhere else, like they may offer you a certain amount of money to subsidize your tuition or help get you a discount or something like that. But that's something that would be more through your employer. We do have offices for international student support and helping international students secure external funding resources. So I can definitely give you those if you reach out to me via email, and I can help you out with that.
So, if I can interject, Godwin, this is Dr. Adam Myers. I suggest that we do have your email, and we will initiate a contact with you and start that conversation in case you're not clear on who to write to. And we're very happy to admit you to the program. Hope you can figure out how to make this work for you this coming year.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I'm very grateful. Very grateful.
Hi. Oh, I see another hand, so um, I can stop if Becky wants to go.
No, go ahead. I'll wait.
Okay. So this is, I guess I'm wondering like how transferable are these courses to different types of addiction? So for instance, I know you mentioned gambling, but does does the program itself tend to focus more on like alcohol use disorder or like what's kind of yeah.
So the program focuses on what is in the DSM-5 as a use disorder. So that's only gambling and substance use disorder. We cover a lot on, we obviously do a lot on alcohol and other drugs as well as gambling. There's certainly applicability to other conditions that are not yet in the DSM-5, but it was, that was what we decided to start with conditions that are in the DSM-5.
Okay.
Was there a specific, were you thinking of other types of conditions?
No, I just didn't know if it was more like that was very clarifying. I was thinking just also like
Okay.
your kind of base addiction or patterns. So yeah, that was really clarifying. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, Becky, you're welcome to go off of mute.
Hi, good morning. Well, at least it's morning still here for me. Thank you for the info session. I have followed this program, I think, since you started. And, unfortunately, Washington, D.C. just really isn't in my, I live halfway across the country. And I've priced out flying back and forth for the program, and I've priced out moving and things like that. I just am curious if an online option has been discussed for future years or some sort of hybrid program. Because I can't find a program like yours, and I've tried for years.
Yeah. So, we certainly have, our goal is to make it more accessible across the country. Our goal is, to kind of begin to have addiction policy studies at every level. So entry level, mid-career, and then professional development. Those are our goals at this time. We want to make sure that happens at some point, but we are still in the kind of planning and the planning stage for those things. So, we appreciate your interest in a hybrid program, and that's certainly something we want to accomplish, but I don't have immediate plans for it, and I can't really give you a timeline yet, but it's definitely on our mind and one of our goals.
Thank you for explaining.
All right, any other questions?
I have a question, and then there's a question in the chat. My question is, whenever we're paired with different local experts, like for the capstone, I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Like, would I be able to be paired with an expert from my community, or would I be paired with an expert who's like in Georgetown? I'm looking at kind of commuting happen anyway.
Right. So for the mentorship program, we try to find people. Like this year, I have someone from Seattle. I paired her with someone from Seattle. We had someone from Oregon last year. I paired her for her career with someone from Oregon. The career mentorship is something that, I'll kind of, because it's pretty early in the semester, you fill out a form, you tell me what you're interested in, and then we'll try to match you, and you can say you want someone in that area. The capstone mentorship is something that the students seek out for themselves. So it can be someone in, another part of the country that works specifically on an issue. I can certainly help facilitate those introductions, but that's that piece of it is kind of up to you. The mentorship, we ask people, and I have also someone this year who's from Kansas City. I paired her with someone from Kansas City. So we try to keep that in mind, what your interest is in the future.
Yes, definitely. I believe our students got their career mentors in around October of this year. So that's more of a kind of ongoing way to help you reach your goals, separate from the capstone.
So if I could address the question in chat. So I assume, Godwin, that you're asking about the STEM designation in relation to visas and professional experience after you obtain the degree. For those of you who aren't aware of what I'm talking about, STEM, of course, is science, technology, and engineering and math, but Homeland Security and the U.S. government has the STEM designation, which allows people who are in STEM-related graduate programs to stay a little bit longer than the typical allowed time for practical experience after a degree. Now, our program does not have a STEM designation at this time. We're working on it. I don't know if it's possible that we'll have it by next year or not, but I appreciate the question because we will for sure circle back with the people who are supposed to be looking into it. A number of programs in the graduate school have applied successfully for it, and I think that we fall well within the definition of STEM that has been applied to those programs. So we hope we can make that happen.
Thank you so much, Prof. I think you have really answered my question so well. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, and Nikki needed to hop off, but they left their personal email in the chat if you'd like to reach out to her. So thank you, Nikki, for coming on today.
All right. If there are no more questions, thank you so much. And my apologies for my technical difficulties, but as Jenny said, you've got our contact information and we are happy to speak with you about any aspects of the program that you're interested in. We'll also be sending this recording of this out so that you could send it along to others, and anyone who registered for it who didn't attend, we'll send it to them as well. So with that, I'll say goodbye, Jenny. If you have any closing comments, or Adam or Nikki.
Yeah, of course. Thank you again, everyone, for spending your lunchtime with us. You'll see our phone number on the screen as well as our email. You can use either of those to reach out and get more information on anything you learned today. Some other things we offer is you can schedule a meeting with me. You can schedule a meeting with the program director. You can come onto campus and visit us. We can coordinate that. I can meet up with you and show you around a bit. And also, if you happen to be local or traveling to DC this week, we have a in-person open house on Friday in the Car Barn building. And during that time, we will be allowing people to sit in on Professor LaBelle's integrative seminar class. So that's a good time to kind of get a sense of what the class is like. You can also request a class visit outside of that time, of course. And I also put our social media up there because that's a great way to kind of see what we're doing, kind of what our program's all about, and what our students are doing. In September, since it was National Recovery Month, we had a lot of great content of students in different events and even events that involved alumni and them getting connected with current students. So that's always really nice to see. Unless Dr. Myers has anything else to say, I hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
All right,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for coming.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon.
You too.
You too.